Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Founders Grid by Gaper.io. Today we have Judy from Capital Innovators. Welcome, Judy, to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, tell us a bit about yourself before you started Capital Innovators. What were you up to and your early career?
Sure. Well, by education, I majored in mechanical engineering and then went to Harvard Law School. After I graduated there, I practiced law for almost an entire year before I came up with an idea for a business. And I left the practice of law to start that business. That wasn't my first business, though. My first business I started when I was in college, and I sold it to go to law school. Anyway, I started this business. It was profitable within 6 months, but in running that business, I had a problem that needed solving. And when I figured out the solution to that problem, I realized that I could also turn that into a business. So I did that. And then I had a similar thing happen again. And then I moved from Dallas to St. Louis and started 2 more businesses. I was looking for my next big idea and actually thought I had found it and was pursuing that when I was invited to help a nonprofit in town that was helping early stage companies get up and going. And it was through my volunteering in that organization that I came up with the idea for Capital Innovators. Basically, I thought that that nonprofit was doing a pretty good job, but the companies really needed some funding that they weren't getting and really needed a different kind of mentorship, I felt. So I went out and raised some money so that I could get these startups some funding, and I revamped a mentorship model and ended up making this it started out as a volunteer gig, but one morning I woke up, realized I was spending 24/7 in it, and thought I need to make this private because this apparently is my next big idea. And I quit pursuing the other thing that I was working on and started doing this full time and with intention. So I've now raised, I'm working on my 3rd fund. The first 2 are fully deployed. We've invested in, I think we're up to 128 companies. And things are going really well. Some of our things are, we've been ranked as a top accelerator for all 5 years they've had rankings. We have helped raise over $330 million in follow-on funding. We've created over 1,300 jobs for our region. Everything's going really great.
Wow. So I think this is your 10th year into running Capital Innovators, right? So,
that's right. That's correct.
So the top key 3 takeaways that you've seen in almost a decade now in those star founders that are able to make super successful companies and exit, the top 3 qualities, what would those be?
You're talking about just in the founders?
It can be a mixture of founders plus the business idea as well. So
yeah, I think the biggest thing that a founder needs from a personality standpoint is grit. I think it takes perseverance to do this. There are going to be some ups and downs. Nobody ever has this smooth hockey stick curve. Even if the companies do really well, if you went back and looked at people's histories, it's more of a jagged line as it climbs. So you have to be able to weather all of those downturns and not get discouraged, but rather think through what you can do to change in order to move with the world or your circumstances to make that work. From a business standpoint, the thing that I tell people most often, especially young people that are in college and they're thinking, I really want to be an entrepreneur, or I really want to run my own company, is that you may have to go out and live a little life first. Because as I described with my businesses, I had started 6 different businesses before I started this. And even if you count this, every one stemmed from a problem that I personally was facing. And I came up with a solution for the problem I was facing and realized that other people had the same problem and would probably pay for a solution. And I really think that's the best way to develop a business rather than say when you're sitting in your entrepreneurship class at college and you're trying to come up with an idea, and you may come up with a reasonable idea, but those, interestingly, usually aren't based on pain points. Those are based on opportunities. And it's always easier to sell to cure somebody's pain than it is to sell somebody on the idea that there's a great opportunity where you can do even better. You're not solving somebody's pain. So when I'm looking at companies, I'm really looking for those kinds of solutions.
Interesting. And so this debate of, the coastal entrepreneurs being better or this, so in your experience, do you think the entrepreneurial DNA is across North America, or one coast has an advantage over the other?
Well, first of all, I don't think that you have to be born in Silicon Valley in order to be a great entrepreneur. I do know that, once you become a great entrepreneur, you might be attracted to that area. And in some instances, I would say rightfully so. It really depends on what business it is that you've created, whether it would make sense for you to move out there where certain personal connections can be made. But for the vast majority of businesses, I don't think that's necessary at all. And I think that what you can gain in your own town, obviously I'm a fan of St. Louis, but there are so many ecosystems out there that have things that they offer. I think it's more important for you to look at your business and see where the best fit is. Smaller cities often have just as many people sort of per entrepreneur that can be helpful to you. And it's maybe even more important to them for you to be successful because there are fewer of those companies that they're trying to help. And it's more important to the city to have successes. So people are pulling a little bit harder for you and you get a little bit more personalized help. I don't think, especially in St. Louis, like we've been fortunate enough to raise quite a bit of follow-on funding, and we've been ranked, second and third in the country for our ability to raise follow-on funding. It's not because I'm particularly well connected or because St. Louis has that kind of funding. It's because we work so hard to create successful companies, and those successful companies are the ones that are able to attract that follow-on funding from all around the country, including Silicon Valley. So don't let those things stop you. Really look at the business you've created and see where the best fit is for you to grow that business.
So 2019 saw a lot of rise in the remote working being on the rise because, we're seeing articles that the whole country is actually going through a technology shortage. So how do you see remote work on the rise, and how do you see it will affect the startups and how to overcome those challenges of finding good full stack developers or software engineers?
Right. Well, we got to get more people majoring in computer science, and we've got to get those programs teaching the right languages. So it might be a little bit of a long haul. In the immediate future, it's interesting. I think the remote, workers can really work for a lot of companies. Again, it depends on your company and how good you are at motivating people to feel like they're part of a team and they're really trying to reach that success with you. I just think there's no substitute for getting a fire in your belly about making sure that you're successful and taking a do or die attitude about it. And I think that can be really hard from a remote standpoint. So if you're going to be a CEO that feels like I have to have specialized tech talent that I can only get from afar, it's super important that you have daily meetings where you're doing just like what we're doing here, you're face-to-face on Skype or whatever you're using, and making sure that everybody feels like they're part of the team, even if they're not present, and trying to make sure that everybody feels that incentive and trying to do this. if you've ever been a part of a sports team, if you can imagine how would you play a sport, but not in person, those are very real challenges. I don't necessarily have all of the magical solutions. I really think that we need to try to move back to an in-person thing. I just think, as you pointed out, there is a shortage everywhere. And so you've got to take your talent where you can find it for right now. But if we can encourage this, whether it's actual universities or new things like, launch code or programs that are trying to help people that aren't going to college learn how to code, and make sure that they're teaching them the languages that are in most demand right now. I really think that's our solution going forward as a country, or in the world.
Yeah. So which vertical are you interested in for 2020, and what advice would you give to someone who's looking to apply to Capital Innovators?
So Capital Innovators takes a slightly different approach. I know a lot of accelerators are really moving towards a specialized, we're only interested in certain vertical spaces and trying to become specialized in that. We go the opposite direction. We definitely take a broad approach, vertical agnostic all the way. I am looking for the best founders sitting on the best ideas, that have the greatest chance for early success. So I'm not looking at any particular space. On the contrary, we've even gone from focusing on, we still spend about 85% of our time in the sort of tech-related fields, but we've branched out into consumer products now. So we're sort of going the opposite direction. More what we look at is, if we really love an idea, but we don't have any expertise in that space currently on our team, we will go out and try to recruit the help that we need in order to make sure that we can help your business move forward. If we cannot find that help, then we may not make you an offer, and it won't have anything to do with you, your company, your idea, or your team. It means that we don't feel like we can be helpful. But way more often than not, I'm able to do that. And that's what happened in the consumer product space, is I went out and recruited mentors for my program. And now we've developed an expertise in that space over a very short history of investing in those companies.
So thank you so much, Judy. It was a pleasure talking to you. I would have loved to keep on going, but my marketing team tells me, I have to stay with it. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you. Have a good day.